But then there's also a sort of bigger point of just this robotic element that we're seeing not creeping, it's flooding in over this last sort of year or two. And I think it's an element of, the greatest manager, one of the greatest managers of all time, Pep Guardiola's style of play, infiltrating everybody else over the last 10 years. But then what we're seeing is almost like a sort of poor man's adaptation of it.
In the recent months, the conversation in the football world has been about how football has become robotic, the decline of creative freedom,
which gives them some freedom. Where's the freedom in that football match? There's none, and I can't accept that. I'm getting really angry with it, because when I say these players, these are fantastic players, by the way, but they're frightened to death to move out of their positions or do anything that might just cost them a mistake that costs them the game.
And how much Pep Guardiola has ruined football. But in this video, instead of focusing on the negatives or positives, debating who's right or wrong, I'm here to suggest a solution. What if the next tactical evolution is not a new formation, or a system, or new principles, but a new philosophy? Today we're gonna explore Posirelation, a concept that blends positional and relational play into one powerful idea. Before we dive into how Posirelation could redefine the football landscape going forward, I think we should understand the current two tactical styles in modern football, starting with positional play. Positional play, or jeu de position, is a possession-based tactical approach made famous by Pep Guardiola. It's about structure, rationally occupying spaces and creating numerical superiorities in zones. Players occupy certain areas and their movement is guided by the structure, not the ball. In Pep Guardiola's words,
el futbol està ocupar racionalment l'espai i la pilota va a l'espai.
The idea is simple. Rationally occupying spaces, moving the ball into those spaces, players don't go to the ball goes to them, what is known as a positional attack. And say what you want about this approach, but it has dominated modern football with many coaches adopting these principles, making Pep Guardiola the most influential coach in the modern era. But some managers opted not to follow the Guardiola way, instead creating their own football philosophy.
So complex, football takes you into so many different aspects in a game, into so many different situations, that if you tell a player all the time, when they do these squares in training, oh, this is your zone, this is where you have to move. Football is not like that.
And now comes relational play, or relationalism. Here, structure is fluid. Instead of holding positions, players move freely in relation to their teammates. Think Ancelotti's Real Madrid, Thiago Motta's Bologna, or Fernando Diniz' Fulminese, where freedom and imagination drive the play more than the structure. Relational systems relies on trust, intuition, and shared patterns. It's about connections, not coordinates. What makes this style special is the unpredictability it creates, as each attacks won't look the same. The street football field it creates, but the downside of this system is it requires players who are special themselves, therefore demanding players with a high game intelligence. So with both of these tactile approaches, as football fans, we have been forced to pick between one of the two, but that's where Posirelation comes in. Posirelation is not a positional or relational approach, but both. It's the idea that a player's role, their impact, comes from the dynamic interplay of their position and the connections with their teammates on the pitch. This graphic explains Posirelation well. Imagine a winger. In positional terms, they must hold the wrist to chest the play, but in relational terms, they must move in relation to their teammates to understand when to invert, when to combine, and when to trigger rotations. However, Posirelation says, your value on a page emerges not from where you are or who you are near, but how those two things interact. Although this might be a new concept to you, if you look closely, you can already see this happening in the modern game. Examples of teams who are implementing this idea include Xabi Alonso by Leverkusen and this season Luis Enrique's PSG. But the best way to see this idea is by watching individual players. Let's look at Bernardo Silva. In Pep's system, he starts in a defined zone, but using his game intelligence, he drifts, rotates, and you will see him popping up everywhere to connect with his teammates and dictate the game. Another example is Florian Wirtz in Alonso's system. If you look at his heat map, you can see the freedom he's given to drift whenever he wants within the structure. Or Jude Bellingham, who occupied the 10th spot last season at Madrid, but didn't stay there. His intelligence lies in how and when he connects with the players around him, but also being a box threat, always positionally aware but never structurally trapped.
That's why I believe always in certain creativity, in certain freedom that the player should have.
But there's also a structuralist view. Your identity is determined by your position in a system. Posirelation looks to bridge these two. Just like a player on the field, they are not defined by their position or who's around them. They are defined by where they are and how they connect with others from there. But with this idea, one question always comes up. Can a system be both structured and fluid? Comment down below what you think. Now let's answer why Posirelation matters. As the game evolves, the best teams will be those who combine both worlds and create a style that's not rigid positional patterns, but also not chaotic relational play, but a team of thinkers, movers, and adapters. Posirelation isn't just a buzzword. It's a lens of seeing football differently. It invites coaches, players, and fans to ask deeper questions. How does space interact with identity? How does movement create meaning? And what kind of football can emerge when structure meets soul? Now it's up to you to answer that. That's it for today. Thank you for watching. If this made you think twice about the next tactical evolution, do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. If you want to support the channel even more and get exclusive content, subscribe to our Patreon account. It would be highly appreciated. Until next time, take care.